Attachment styles have become a hot topic. In my work as a therapist, I've even had quite a few people bring up attachment styles before I even get a chance to. And usually they also tell me that they learned about attachment styles on social media. And every time this has happened, on the inside, I've just been like, oh no. I've seen a lot of questionable, problematic, and plain inaccurate messages about attachment styles being thrown around on social media. And I've also seen how this type of content can put worries in people's heads that make them question and maybe even sabotage perfectly good relationships. Which is why I wanted to make this video to bring your awareness to 3 common ways that attachment styles are misused on social media. And my hope is that after you've watched this video, you will be able to look at any content mentioning attachment styles with a more critical eye so that you and your relationships won't be harmed by any misinformation out there. As of today, if you go to the hashtag attachment styles page on TikTok, you will find over 60,000 posts. And unless you're an accredited mental health professional who has studied attachment styles, it's really difficult to know whether the information on this page is factual or appropriate. I wouldn't know if I wasn't a therapist. So for today's video, I've picked out some videos for us to watch together from the hashtag attachment styles page on TikTok, and we're gonna talk about what's misleading about them and what's actually the right way to look at attachment styles that actually benefits us. It is going to be a bit kind of like a therapist reacts type video, but it's not actually a reacts video because that's just not my vibe. Now, before we get started, I do want to make it very clear that in no way, shape, or form am I bashing on or canceling any of the creators that made the videos that we're going to watch together. That is a really bad look. And as you'll see, all of these videos were clearly well-intentioned. These creators are just trying to help people with their content. And I'm also out here trying to help people with my content. So I respect the game. I know how difficult it is. I simply wanted to share my point of view as a therapist in the hopes that it'll benefit some of you. Also, this is our second video in our 3-part video series on attachment styles. Last week, we talked about everything you need to know about attachment styles, and I really tried to trim away the fat and only keep the most important information that you need to know about attachment theory to improve your relationships. So I would really recommend checking out part 1 first before you watch this video, and I'll link it. I think it's on this side. Yeah. And next week in video 3, we're going to be going over real strategies to shift towards a more secure attachment style based on all the knowledge we've gained in this series so far. So I really hope you'll join me then. But in the meantime, let's decipher some TikToks together. Okay, so I found 3 TikToks for this first misuse of attachment styles. Let's watch them all together first, and then we'll chat.
Hey man, I'm gonna try to be nice when I say this, but it's impossible for me to not hold in the rage anymore. Avoidantly attached people can go fuck themselves because they're a bunch of little bitches. And before some angry Tumblr Tina stitches me and tells me how wrong I am, I know someone's gonna say that it's a trauma response. I know someone's gonna say, well, did you know that being avoidant is actually a trauma response to traumatic events and blah, 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 fucking blah. I hope you know that it's horrible that you've gone through any sort of trauma and you shouldn't deserve to go through that. But at the same time, did you know that your trauma affects how you affect other people, and you have to actively choose to not let it do that?
We can tell this video was made from a really hurt place by the way that he describes people with an avoidant attachment style as terrible people. And this is actually a pretty common thing I noticed, is that people on social media are not fans of people with an avoidant attachment style. They really do not get a good rep. And I actually also found this video made by someone who self-identifies as someone with an avoidant attachment style.
You're 19?
Yes.
You look older. That's not a compliment. I'm telling you, you look troubled and older than your year.
This one actually did make me laugh. We all love a video that makes light of our issues. But it seems like she thinks that having an avoidant attachment style is a bad thing. And finally, here's the 3rd video.
5 unhealthy attachment styles that stem from your childhood that affect your relationships. Number 1, the pleaser.
I'm confused about a few things here. First of all, there are 4 attachment styles, not 5, and None of them are called the pleaser. All three of these videos seem to be promoting this idea that there are good and bad or healthy and unhealthy attachment styles when no such dichotomy exists. No one attachment style is better than another. An attachment style is essentially a set of coping strategies that we developed in childhood to deal with how consistent and available our caregiver was at meeting our needs. So if we have an insecure attachment style, that means we probably had to have one at one point to adapt to our caregiver. It probably protected us from hurt and disappointment, and it allowed us to get our needs met. This is not a bad thing. This is actually a very good thing. It means we coped appropriately at the time. Now, that being said, I actually do agree 1000% with Kenan from the first video that someone's past trauma, yes, while it is unfair that they had to go through that, it still does not give them free rein to behave however they want in their relationships. And it is each of our own responsibility to resolve our own trauma and work towards having a more secure attachment style so that we're not bleeding all over other people. However, this still does not mean that before we've healed that we have a bad or an unhealthy attachment style, or that we are a bad or an unhealthy person. All it means is that we had a set of coping strategies in childhood that served us then that no longer serve us in this phase of our life. And now it's time to manage some of those old tendencies we had from childhood so that we're not unintentionally hurting other people or ourselves, and we can have better, more meaningful relationships today. Okay, for this second misuse of attachment styles, I found quite a few videos that started off like this.
Not sure if that hot new guy you're seeing is avoidant? Well, here are 3 possible signs.
How to tell if the person you're dating is avoidant.
Here are a couple serious red flags to look out for that might indicate that the person you're dating is an avoidant.
Here's a simple way to spot an avoidant partner early on.
Please, I urge you to be very wary of any videos talking about signs your partner has X attachment style. Attachment theory is a tool that should only be used to understand ourselves better and to work on ourselves. Using it to psychoanalyze or pathologize other people is not an appropriate use of attachment theory. I get it. When the person that we're dating is acting in a way that makes us feel anxious or confused, we want to make sense of their behavior so that we can get rid of that confusion and anxiety as quickly as possible. And maybe labeling them as an avoidant is the easiest shortcut we can find to explain their behavior and get ourselves back in control. I get it. However, what concerns me about these types of videos is the possibility that they're making people jump to a conclusion that the person that they're dating has an avoidant attachment style without having a conversation with them to confirm that this is actually the case. What I would not want to happen is for someone to falsely assume that their partner is an avoidant and then view everything they do through this lens of, oh, it's because he's an avoidant. And it just ends up tainting their perspective of them as a person and all of their interactions with them. It could be that they didn't text back immediately because they were cleaning their bathroom, or maybe they just don't really like to text and they prefer to call, not necessarily because they're an avoidant. There are severe consequences to assuming someone's attachment style. First of all, it creates this huge barrier to understanding, which inevitably is going to lead to a lot of miscommunications and probably an unfulfilling relationship. And over time, if enough of these miscommunications and feelings of unfulfillment add up over time, it might lead to the end of the relationship. Also, if we've already decided for ourselves someone's attachment style, whenever an issue comes up in the relationship, it becomes way too easy to place the blame for the issue on the other person's attachment style. And this does not leave any room for self-reflection or taking responsibility for our own actions and maybe the ways that we contributed to the issue. So instead of assuming someone's attachment style based on some signs or red flags we heard about on social media, let's instead have an open conversation with them where we do two things. Number one, we go in with the intention of just being curious and wanting to understand them better. And number two, we communicate to them how their actions impacted us and our feelings. It is our responsibility to bring concerns up when we have them. If the idea of having this type of conversation just freaks you out, we are going to be going in depth into how to have these uncomfortable conversations in next week's video, so I hope you'll join me then. But in the meantime, let's move on to the next misuse of attachment styles, and let's start by watching these two videos together first.
If you are an anxious attachment girly, the phrase, "if he wanted to, he would," is not for you.
If you are an anxious attached girly, this is what we're doing this year when it comes to dating people, okay? We tend to psychoanalyze, we tend to interpret, we tend to daydream, think, and process so many stupid things that another person says, does, or doesn't do. And this year, what we are going to do, this is our goal, baby, this is my goal. If you want to join in, please feel free. I'm holding myself accountable to stay rooted in my own energy, regardless of whatever a man does or doesn't do, okay? As an anxious attached girly, our mood shifts based on the actions of another person, okay? This is part of the attachment theory, okay, guys? It's literally not our fault, okay?
Love the passion. Also, I think it's pretty nice and wholesome that there's this like mutual support amongst anxious attached girlies on TikTok. And you know, the tips that these girls shared in these videos are pretty legit ways of coping. That is not the part that I'm concerned about. We will get to that, but first I did want to share with you a few other types of videos that I want us to be wary of. First, I found quite a few videos that were in this format of signs you have X attachment style.
More signs that your attachment style may be anxious. You love to be very close to your romantic partner and have the capacity for great intimacy. You often fear that your partner does not wish you to be as close to them as you would like to be. Relationships tend to consume a large part of your emotional energy. You tend to be very sensitive to small changes in your partner's moods and actions, and although senses are often accurate, you take your partner's behavior personally. When you experience negative emotions from your partner, you find yourself getting very upset very easily. As a result, you tend to sometimes act out and say things you regret. Do these sound familiar? Let me know in the comments.
I love how you can tell that the second video is from like 2020 TikTok when people used to point at text across the screen. Times have changed. Also, I found quite a few videos in this format where people talk about what it's like to have a certain attachment style. The most obvious concern to me about these types of videos is the danger in reducing something as complex and nuanced as attachment styles into one or a few signs. What I don't want to happen to you is for you to watch a couple of these videos, be like, holy shit, that's me, and then become convinced based on this very limited, very incomplete information that you have a certain attachment style. We should not be psychoanalyzing or pathologizing ourselves using TikTok. But I have another concern about these types of videos that's more hidden, more insidious, and that is that the possibility that people are starting to over-identify with their attachment style and kind of seeing it as their fate. Kind of like the way some people really strongly identify with their zodiac sign and see that as their fate. These next two videos really irked me.
Your attachment style could determine the fate of your relationship.
Oh no. The last thing I want to happen to you is for you to believe that you are not capable of having healthy relationships because of your attachment style. And then it ends up kind of becoming this self-fulfilling prophecy where you play out the same unhelpful patterns in your relationships because you think you would have no other choice. And then when things go wrong in your relationship, be like, well, this was bound to happen. This is just my attachment style. Please, I do not want you to think that you are doomed to struggle in your relationships for the rest of your life because of your attachment style. Attachment styles are not fixed personality traits. They're not fate. It is possible to change, and we all have the ability to shift towards a more secure attachment style and have healthy, fulfilling relationships, no matter our childhood experiences, no matter our attachment style. And in next week's video, we are going to be talking about the strategies that we can use to shift towards a more secure attachment style. So I really hope you'll join me then. But in the meantime, I do hope that this video has helped us to develop a more critical eye for this type of content on attachment styles. If it's a piece of content of someone sharing their own experience with their own attachment style, that is fair game, and thank you for sharing. That is like the most therapist thing I could have ever said. But if it's more of a signs or red flags or tips for healing type video, I hope we are all paying close attention to who is sharing this type of content. Are they a legit mental health professional who is qualified to be talking about this? Or are they more of a lifestyle self-help type creator or an expert or a coach? I'm not saying that there aren't legit experts and coaches out there. More so, anyone can call themselves a coach and they don't necessarily have to have any kind of accreditation. So if the content is coming from a coach, I hope that we are all at least checking their credentials to see if they have any qualifications as a mental health provider before we take their content at face value. If you are looking for some legit attachment styles content, I would highly recommend checking out Therapy Jeff and Dr. Julie Smith. They are both licensed professionals and they are both incredible at what they do. So that was video 2 in our 3-part video series on attachment styles. I really hope this video helps you and protects you when you're out there consuming content on attachment styles. If you missed video 1, I'll leave it linked over here for you to check out if you'd like. And depending on when you're watching this, video 3 might also be out, so I'll leave that linked over here as well. But if you're watching this and video 3 isn't out yet, I hope that you'll join me next week for it. And in the meantime, as always, I hope you're doing well and I will see you next time. Bye.